Hey everyone, this is Erica Sabo. Welcome to another episode of My Bit. Hi everybody, I hope you are well. So today I'm going to be doing something that I probably should have done a long time ago. As you might have noticed in my top JRPG series I've covered the PlayStation 3, I've covered the PSP, and I've covered the PlayStation 1. So today I am actually going to be covering the top 5 JRPGs on the Super Nintendo and Super Famicom. So this is a really difficult one. This was very difficult. I decided to keep it as a top 5 because of many reasons. There's a lot of reasons. Primarily the fact that there's a lot of games I just did not spend enough time with, or especially imports, actually. There are no Super Famicom games in my top 5, just to let you know right now, but I will be having an honorable mentions section after my top 5 list, just to tell you about a bunch of other games that are really important to me. These games, all of these games, really should be on some form of list. And I don't know if I'll ever make a list like that, but it's very much deserving. They all deserve it in some shape or form. They've influenced the genre in so many different ways, and they did things that a lot of other games at the time did not do, and were too scared to do, for that matter. So I really hope you enjoy this list. Number 5 in my top 5 JRPGs on the Super Nintendo goes out to Final Fantasy II or Final Fantasy IV. This shouldn't really be a surprise to any of you. While this is a very special game to me, I do have some other favorites in the Final Fantasy series, and I felt like I don't know, I really love this game, but it also didn't really pull any punches. It didn't take any serious risks, but it was a classic fantasy, and that's part of why I really like it so much, actually, too, is the fact that it's not afraid to just be a fantasy. It's not afraid to take on its name to the fullest extent. It's a really wonderful game with some amazing characters, very memorable moments, just all throughout. And yeah, it's definitely a classic. It's a game that everybody should play, whether you are a JRPG fan, whether you're a gamer, or whether you're a Final Fantasy fan. It's well worth your time. Number 4 on my list goes out to Super Mario RPG. This is a game that all of you need to have played, at least at one point, and if you haven't, where have you been this whole time? The first time I played it actually was on a ROM because I could never really afford the game, and I never got the game growing up, unfortunately. And it's something that I still don't own in my collection because I want it to be complete, you know, and that's a lot to ask for. But what's so amazing about this game is the fact that it does such a wonderful job of bringing all these characters from the Mushroom Kingdom and placing them into an RPG. I love the Paper Mario series. I think it's amazing, and I really loved Paper Mario on the N64 especially. But there's something so special about Super Mario RPG that I can hardly even pinpoint exactly. There's some magic to it that I don't think we've experienced since. It offered characters that we knew and loved since we were kids, and characters that we'd never even heard of, but somehow felt familiar. Characters that felt very familiar to that kingdom. I think that it's very quirky, and the dialogue especially brings out that quirkiness, and it brings out something very magical, something that we couldn't have experienced otherwise, but also very familiar. I really love this game very much, and I think it was a really nice step in JRPGs, and gave us an idea of what else you can do with the genre. It did something rare. It did something we just do not see that often, and I really appreciate that. I really appreciate that very much. If you haven't played it, I highly recommend this game. You will laugh, you will cry. There's so many sentimental moments that I'm sure you will absolutely enjoy. Number 3 on my list goes out to another game that decided to branch off into the far corners of the JRPG genre, and that game is Earthbound. Earthbound is very similar to Super Mario RPG in the sense that this game went above and beyond. This game did things that you did not see in the genre, or you did not see very often. It had a very contemporary approach to what it was doing. It actually had a very contemporary commentary, like social commentary in general, yet it was very quirky and it knew how to have fun, and it felt like a JRPG. It felt like one, but it was so different all at the same time. It's probably one of the most, and I mean this in a very good way, but it's so very alien in comparison to other JRPGs out there. Some people wouldn't even consider it a JRPG, even though it very much is. It's a game that I wish I could own, and actually I am gonna be a proud owner of this very soon, complete in box. I'm very excited for that. That's gonna be happening within the next couple months, and it's that devotion that I have for it that just made me want to go all out and just, you know, get it, and I was very lucky for that, that's for sure, but I digress. This game is completely off the wall. In everything it does, it's completely off the wall, and some people might be turned off by that. However, the fact that it's willing to take those risks and do something that so few games have ever been willing to do is another reason why it's become such a cult favorite amongst so many. It's, you know, the reason why we have fan translations of the Mother series. It's just, it's such a groundbreaking series, and this game in general is just very groundbreaking in its own way. It's something to behold. It really is. If you haven't tried it out, it's something else completely, but I'm sure you'll love it. Number 2 on my top 5 JRPGs on the Super Nintendo goes out to Chrono Trigger. Chrono Trigger. So many good memories with this game, and I'm sure this is definitely on some of your top lists as well. I think one of my favorite aspects of this game is actually the time travel. It's an element that I think a lot of companies were too afraid to tackle. It's, you know, in terms of like continuity and all these other complications. But I feel like Chrono Trigger handled it so well, and yet was still able to take this science and create something heartfelt from it. It was able to make something so sentimental, so classic in feel. It's a wonderful JRPG that I couldn't suggest more. You know, it's one of those games that really got my heart pounding sometimes. It had a very serious yet touching story all at the same time, and the adventure you were on, you actually felt like you were part of the team. And I think that's another thing that I really appreciated about it, is that by the end, I actually felt like I was part of this team. I felt like I was friends with all of these characters, and it meant so much to me to have that. It's really wonderful when a game and its story can be so immersive that it can make you feel that way, that it can make you feel like there's a particular sort of longing for those characters, like they've been someone you've known your whole life. I don't own this game either, unfortunately. It's another one that's pretty tricky to find, especially for a price that I can afford. So I actually do have the first run of the Nintendo DS port, which is also why I have that awesome poster over there. It's a wonderful game, and if you're really into time travel, which I am very much in love with, I love the ideas behind it, I love the theory of it, and have it so well integrated within a game, then I'm sure you will absolutely enjoy this one as well. Now, my number 1 JRPG on the Super Nintendo goes out to a little game called Final Fantasy III or Final Fantasy VI. Now, this game embodied everything I could have ever wanted from a game during this time. This game is extremely important to me, and it's really molded who I am today. It's been one of my biggest influences, and it's helped me have just the right sort of judgment in terms of what kind of JRPGs I know and love, right? So this game is not just like an amazing game in general, but it's also a very sentimental game for me too. There were a lot of memories that were connected to this game, and I adore it. I adore it. And I think one of my favorite parts about having a number 1 game is the fact that I can accept its faults, and Final Fantasy VI does have its its faults. It has some very memorable characters in it, some amazing characters. I swear, I think Locke is probably one of my favorites of all time. However, there were also a lot of characters that were underappreciated and kind of were swept under the rug. Yet at the same time, if I am able to accept those faults about the game, that just makes it that much stronger for me. Like, the relationship is that much stronger, and I have that much more confidence and that much more loyalty towards it. So I always end up having it that way. It always ends up being a game that has some fault in some shape or form, but I love it nonetheless, because, you know, every game has that, but there's a certain extent to which you end up placing a game in number 1, or you end up placing a game in number 5 or number 4 or number 3 or number 2, right? So I think that this game had an amazing story, amazing two-part story too. I know some people did not really like the transition between both parts. However, I found it to be another example of something that a lot of companies might have been a little bit too nervous to take on. It's something that, while this game was a classic and it was able to offer a lot for, you know, any JRPG fan, it was also willing to take risks. It was willing to take those risks and know that perhaps there'd be people who would think, oh, that's, you know, why would they do something like that? Why would they dabble in it in such a way? However, I find that very commendable. More than anything, I find it very commendable, and I think it was a risk that was well worth taking, and I think that it branched the story that much farther out, and it brought our characters together that much stronger. Another part that I really enjoy is the fact that I absolutely adore the antagonist. I absolutely adore Kefka. There's something about having such a likable antagonist that I find very appealing in games, and it's not often that I have those kinds of situations where I end up loving them so much. So of course, when you're in the final battle, it makes it that much more engaging, and it makes it that much more involving. It's really interesting having those dynamics where you understand the allies so much and you understand what they're fighting for, but then in a way you find this certain something about the antagonist that you know and love, yet you know that what they're doing is wrong, that you know you need to fight against that, all of that, while still loving it at the same time. So I really like that. I really like that relationship dynamic between the two. And I think that there was just so much within this game that helped influence so many other games later on, and even a few at the time too. I think it's a wonderful game that you just absolutely need to try out for yourself if you're looking for something in the Final Fantasy series, in a JRPG or whatever, you know, or a gamer. You don't even have to really be into JRPGs. You need to at least give this a try and be immersed in its story. Let yourself be immersed in its story and in its characters, and just enjoy the ride. So next we're gonna go on to my honorable mentions. These games might not have been on the list for various reasons. The top 5 games on my list were chosen because they are, for me, they are on the highest pedestals. They are games that have influenced the genre in so many ways. And that's not saying that these other games did not influence. However, I feel as though they might have influenced to a lesser extent, right? Or it could be the fact that maybe I didn't play enough of the game, which is primarily because a lot of them were imports. Unfortunately, they only came out on the Super Famicom, which is a shame considering how amazing some of them are. But some of those games that I can envision right off the top of my head would have to be games like Secret of Evermore, Illusion of Gaia, Tales of Fantasia, Secret of Mana, Bahamut Lagoon, the Ys series in general, Dragon Quest V especially, Man, there are just so many. There are so many games, and I know I'm gonna forget some. And I don't want you guys to be upset over any of this, just because it's one of those things where it's overflowing with games. There's Lufia as well. What else is there? What else? There's Shin Megami Tensei. There's just so much that's just flowing through my head right now. And these games deserve all the attention. They deserve so much of it. And I consider these games to be just as much a part of my list as my top 5 were. These are very important games. Breath of Fire. Let's say that. There's so much, guys. There's just so much. There's so much, there's so many wonderful games that were overshadowed, or games that just didn't you know, get the light of day here. Terranigma, let's talk that, you know? Like, all of these games are just so important, and it's really a shame that we didn't get them, but it is nice to know that we have people who can appreciate them as much as they do, and give shout outs, and talk about them, and you know, choose to discuss these sort of games that might not have been the most popular, but are still very influential in their own ways. So yeah, there's my top 5 list with my honorable mentions. I'd love to hear what some of yours would be, whether they're on your top 5 list or honorable mentions. I'm always interested in hearing your opinions and your ideas, and what makes you tick, really. What makes you tick? I want to know. I want to know. I'm sure I'm going to be doing another one of these lists again very soon. These are some of my favorite lists to do. I love JRPGs, and I could go on and on all day about various genres, but there's something about this one in particular that really gets me. So I hope you really enjoyed this top list, and I hope you tune in again very soon for another video. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see y'all later.